We are now live.
Okay. Good evening. It is 6 p.m. and I'm calling the Albemarle Planning Commission for August 11th to order. As always, the public can access and participate in the meeting through information posted in the Albemarle County website, specifically on the Planning Commission's homepage and the Albemarle County calendar. During the meeting, there will be opportunities for public comment on specific agenda items where input is invited. That we call it to order. Madam Clerk, can we get a roll call for quorum, please?
Yes, sir. Ms. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
I am here.
Mr. Murray?
Here.
Mr. Carazana?
Here.
Have Mr. Claiborne is out today and Ms. Firehawk and Ms. King are on their way.
Okay.
I'll note what time it is when they get here.
That's what we're told. Thank you. At this time, if there's any members from the public that would like to speak to matters that are not listed in the agenda, now would be the time to come up to the podium, microphone. Being none, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Mr. Carazana?
Aye.
Mr. Murray?
Abstain.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Brown?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we move on to our public hearing. SP 2026-5 Beaver Creek Pump Station fill in the floodplain. Maybe we get the staff report, please?
Of course. Carolyn, can you bring that up?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Welcome. Good evening. My name is Jared Tate. I'm a senior planner with the Planning Division of Albemarle County Community Development. Tonight, I will be giving staff's presentation for the Beaver Creek Pump Station fill in the floodplain request. The property is located in western Albemarle County at the southern end of the Beaver Creek Reservoir in the vicinity of Browns Gap Turnpike as it crosses the Beaver Creek Dam. The surrounding area is of rural character with a variety of rural areas uses, including low-density single-family residential, forests and open space, and agricultural uses. The entirety of the property is within the WPO buffer, and a portion of the property is within the flood hazard overlay district. A small portion of the project site infringes into the flood hazard overlay district, also known as the floodplain. Subject property and all surrounding properties are designated as rural areas in AC 44. Example of rural areas land uses include agricultural, forestal, and open space uses, as well as residential uses at a density of half a unit per acre. The SP request is for grading activities, including placement of 450 cubic yards of fill in the floodplain. On screen is an excerpt from the concept plan illustrating the location of the pump station, the retaining walls, and other associated improvements. The red dashed line represents the edge of the flood hazard overlay. The area highlighted in green represents the area within the floodplain where fill will be placed. Small breakdown of areas for comparison has been provided on screen. This is the landscaping plan from application SDP 2025-114. With this proposed site plan, the applicant has proposed to replant disturbed areas in the riparian buffer to the maximum extent possible in order to maintain the forestal character of the parcel. The proposed landscape plan exceeds ordinance minimums. Section 30.3 of the zoning ordinance includes the standards applicable to the flood hazard overlay. The provisions of this section are intended to restrict the unwise use, development, and occupancy of lands subject to inundation. The proposed fill in the floodplain is necessary to allow the development of the raw water facility, including the stepping and separation of retaining walls for the facility. The applicant has certified that the amount of fill will not lead to a rise in the base elevation of the floodplain. Staff believe that the proposal is in harmony with the purpose and intent of the Flood Hazard Overlay District. The factors for consideration for special use permits are as shown. Per the analysis included in the staff report, staff finds that the proposed fill in the floodplain will cause no substantial detriment to adjacent parcels, will not change the character of the area, will be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the chapter, and is consistent with AC 44. Staff recommends these two conditions of approval for the fill in the floodplain special use permit. The second condition is included as the landscaping plan is separate from the concept plan. In summary, staff has identified one positive aspect for the request, that the applicant has certified no rise will occur as a result of the placement of fill. Staff has identified no concerns associated with the request. I'm happy to revisit any of the slides and take questions from the commission.
Commissioners, do we have any questions for staff?
Yes. So, if I'm wrong, but typically when there's like clearing of vegetation within a buffer, including a floodplain, there'd be some kind of mitigation if this was done like as a private application. And so in this circumstance, is RWSA planning to do any kind of mitigation, tree planting somewhere else to accommodate for the impact of the buffer that there's going to occur as part of this?
A good question. So under the standards of the Water Protection Ordinance, no mitigation plan is required for this type of use within the buffer. So no, a mitigation plan is not required.
So even if this was a private application, and they were clearing trees within the buffer to do fill, we wouldn't require mitigation for that?
It depends on the use as described. Again, per this specific use, it is permitted.
It's coming up.
Frank, you want to jump in?
Frank Pohl, County Engineer. As a public facility, it is exempt from it's not a requirement for this particular project to provide mitigation. It's in the by right section of the ordinance.
Okay, because it's a public facility.
Yeah, so if it were private, that might be a different outcome.
I mean, I only bring this up as a concern just because I know that I realized that we wrote it for this way, but I can see a complaint from members of the public who might say that we're holding ourselves to a different standard than we're holding the public to. That if it was a member of the public, we'd require them mitigation, and we're exempting ourselves from those kind of requirements. So I'll just put that out there. So.
Thank you.
Oh,
Back.
before you sit, one more question. You're already up here.
Yes, thanks. I wanted to ask you because you're the engineer. So just mostly for the public's benefit, could you just say a little bit about how this site was selected and the importance of the pump station being in that proximity?
I'll have to leave that to the applicant.
Okay,
I think they're the ones who selected the site. And
okay, so
that would
you
be
didn't have
best.
on that.
That would
Okay,
be best for
thank
them
you.
to discuss. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Pohl.
Any other? Do you have any other questions for staff? No? Okay. All right. Well,
Hi, Victoria Fort with Urbana Water and Sewer Authority. I do have some presentation slides. I wasn't sure if you wanted me to address that within my presentation or at this time.
yeah, we're gonna
Okay.
open up for public hearing right now. We're gonna give you. But so actually, you go first. So yeah, if the applicant would like to come up and.
Sorry.
Just wanna
Thank you.
let it first had to open it. So you'll have 5 minutes for your.
Okay, I do
comments.
have some slides.
They're
Are they-
on the desktop.
Okay, thank you. All right, so as I mentioned, I'm Victoria Ford. I'm the project manager with Rivanna Water and Sewer Authority for the project. I'm also joined by Jonathan McClure from Hazen and Sawyer, who's the engineering consultant on the project. I just wanted to add some additional context on the project, the site, and some additional considerations that went into the design as you consider our request. So a little bit about the Crozet water supply system. The Beaver Creek Dam and Reservoir is the sole water supply for the Crozet service area. The dam was constructed in 1963 as a soil conservation service, which is now NRCS, water supply and flood control project. And it has approximately 500 million gallons of storage. The Crozet water treatment plant was constructed shortly thereafter in 1966 with about 1 million gallons per day of treatment capacity. And it was recently expanded to 2.2 million gallons of treatment and 1.6 million gallons per day of distribution pumping capacity, basically the finished water that goes out of the plant. With the increased growth in the area, we've seen increases in water demand over the last several decades. And as a result of that increased demand and also some necessary dam safety upgrades and upgrades to the pump station, that prompted the need for us to obtain a Virginia water protection permit from DEQ. So that permit was issued in December 2024, and that essentially establishes limits on the water withdrawals per day, month, and year, as well as requirements for minimum downstream releases into Beaver Creek. On the left here, I've got a diagram showing the general components of the system. So as I mentioned, we've got the Beaver Creek Reservoir. I don't think I have a cursor. Beaver Creek Reservoir and Dam. The Browns Gap Turnpike runs across the crest of the dam, and on the north side, you can see is Beaver Creek Reservoir Park, which is a county park facility. Downstream of the dam, at the bottom of the hill, is the existing raw water pump station. That pump station is limited in its capacity. There are also some other limitations just with its location and setup that make it not a good applicant for upgrade as opposed to replacement. From that pump station, there is a raw water main that travels, that's the blue line, along Browns Gap and then over to Old Three Notch Road to the water treatment plant. And that conveys the raw water to the plant for treatment. So the components of the new project include a new raw water pump station and intake out in the reservoir. And this site was selected for a handful of reasons. One, is located on the reservoir, which just separates out the release into the stream and the withdrawals for water supply. And it enables us to better dial in the amount of water needed for treatment and the amount of water that needs to go back into the stream per DEQ requirements. It also is located on property owned by Albemarle County. So it minimizes the public impacts from the project by using that publicly owned land for this purpose. And then it's also located in close proximity to Browns Gap Turnpike, which shortened the amount of raw water main that has to go back to the plant and also the access road, the length of the access road from a main road site. The improvements also include as I mentioned, the new access road from Browns Gap Turnpike with a bridge over a small stream, and then a replacement transmission main back from the pump station to the water treatment plant, which would be a new material and have just a greater carrying capacity than the existing plant or existing pipe. And then lastly, in the upper right, you can see the outline of the dam spillway reconstruction. That project will take place after the new pump station is in service, so we're a couple of years out from that. But I wanted to show the location of that project. Essentially, it does not meet current dam safety regulations per the state, and so a new spillway will be necessary in order to meet the requirements for a high hazard dam facility. A closer look at the pump station site here. As I mentioned, we have to increase the capacity of the pump station so that this pump station will have a maximum capacity of 2.8 million gallons for raw water conveyance. And then we'll also have 2 million gallons of capacity for the maximum required minimum in-stream flow. That's the flow that is released into Beaver Creek downstream. So it'll be able to serve both of those purposes. It'll also consist of an intake that will be tunneled out into the reservoir and a destratification system, which I'll talk about in a couple of slides here. This is a cross-section of the pump station building. You can see the circular intake wet well shaft. below the building itself, and then the tunnel that goes out into the reservoir to the intake, where it will have intakes located at multiple levels with screens to prevent aquatic life from making its way into the raw water system. And then you can also see there in this depiction, the retaining walls that are required in order to flood the site. Because as we're located on the edge of a reservoir, there are steep slopes on the site. And therefore, we have to make the best use of what is a very constrained site with those retaining walls. And that is what is pushing us for the need to fill in the floodplain for the special use permit. I mentioned the diffused air destratification system. This is also being installed at the same time as the new pump station and intake. This is entirely to improve the water quality within the reservoir. It's essentially a bubbler that will follow along the length of the reservoir. You can see on the bottom right is an example project. So the pipe goes along the reservoir floor, and then it releases air bubbles, which allow mixing of the water column, and it prevents some of the issues that can lead to extensive algal growth and heavy nutrients within the reservoir. So that'll enable us to treat algae less and also use less chemicals within the treatment process itself. Here's a rendering of the completed facility. So here you can see that we have to bench in that access road. So on the uphill side, we've got a soil nail wall with fall protection railing and security fencing. And then on that downhill side, we have a modular block wall to support that. You can also see the bridge over the perennial stream that's located along that access road. And the retaining walls that are part of this application do continue around the back of the building on the upper right of this picture. But as you can see, once the vegetation grows back in, that will be largely obstructed from view. Here's another rendering on the right side to show the completed project, and on the left side, it just gives you a sense of the current character of the edge of the reservoir, which is forested. Here's another view of the proposed pump station from Beaver Creek Park across the reservoir. And then on the left side of the drawing there, or the rendering there, you can see the Beaver Creek Dam in its current state. So if you continue from the dam to the right, you can see where that bridge is located. And then in the middle of the rendering, you can see the pump station sticking out above the treetops there. So in summation, the site constraints require retaining walls in order to construct the facility within the Albemarle County property limits. The requested 450 cubic yards of fill in the floodway fringe was found to result in no rise in the 100-year floodplain of Beaver Creek Reservoir. Extensive replanting is proposed around the new facility to maintain the forested character of the parcel. And so Rivanna respectfully requests approval of the special use permit to allow fill in the floodplain with the conditions included in Jarrett's report. Any questions?
Questions?
Okay.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, just one. So what are we doing to minimize impacts to that? I know there's a stream crossing before you get to that site. Having been out in that area before, I know that is actually a pretty, or was a pretty decent stream with some vegetation that's unusual in Albemarle County. And so I was wondering what measures are being taken to protect that stream while the construction is going on.
All of our ENS measures are detailed in the WPO plan. But we have, for during construction, obviously, and then in the future condition, we have, maybe Jonathan can speak better to the stormwater management components of that plan.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
I think I understand this already, but I just want to reiterate. Is the majority of the fill behind the retaining wall? Like,
Yes.
you're just filling in behind the retaining,
Yeah.
so.
Originally, we had a single retaining wall, but it exceeded the maximum height allowed by the county code. And so we created a stepped retaining wall system, but obviously you need a certain amount of space in between the two walls. So that expanded the overall footprint of that fill into the floodplain.
So just in layman's terms, we're not filling the floodplain where it may flood in the future because the retaining wall is gonna prevent that. Right? I mean, water's gonna rise, walls we're filling behind, right? Am I understanding that correctly?
I mean, in essence, by putting fill within the floodplain, you occupy space that water would otherwise fill, but we found that there was no rise in the 100-year flood, even with that additional fill.
Thank you.
Just for reference, the 0.04 acres of fill is about, what, 1,700 square feet? So we're talking like this dais to about where the chairs are from the wall to wall, give or take.
Do you anticipate like wildlife who are using that riparian edge right now to be able to continue to access that stream under the bridge?
There would be no obstructions to that.
Okay.
And I will mention too, there is a small footpath that was, it's called the Henley Hornets Trail that runs along the edge of the reservoir. We will be reestablishing that as part of the
Great.
overall plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Recommend to speak to the-
So Jonathan McClure with Hazen and Sawyer. Victoria's done a good job answering the questions so far. With the bridge, the only addition I'd like to make is that the bridge, we considered like a simple culvert or filling across. But the bridge will essentially, after construction, allow us to restore the stream. We've had environmental specialists from our firm come out, and we've been coordinating with the Army Corps of Engineers. It is a jurisdictional water. We have received our permits from them with regards to the impacts on the streams and the waters. So their conditions have been satisfied.
Thanks. So I do have one other question. This is also about we talked about water quality, and one of the reasons that we're doing a lot of these things. One of the things I've noticed is that there is a significant, it's not directly related to this project here, I have you here. And there's a significant portion of grass there, including on some steep slopes. If you go back and look at the overhead of the reservoir there. One thing that's concerned me is, you have all that grass that attracts geese. And then the geese end up, leaving waste that then flows into the reservoir, which increases the need for doing more treatment. And I was wondering, have you considered, converting any of that grass to native wildflowers or something else to help, which is proven to discourage geese if you have taller native vegetation?
You're talking about on the dam itself?
Yeah, on the dam, not on the dam itself, but if you look sort of to the, I can't see the whole reservoir there.
Let's see, this one?
Yes, it's more like there's some steep areas around sort of where the parking lot is,
Yeah,
there-
on the north side of the
Yeah.
dam?
yeah, if you look over there, when you got there, just look.
Mhm.
I know that there's a limit to what you can do on the dam because you have to mow that
Right.
to keep the vegetation down, but
And that is the case as well. So on the other side of that the small parking lot that's just north of the dam there is the auxiliary spillway or the emergency spillway. With the dam component of the project, which as I mentioned is a few years out, we will be filling that back up to the full height of the dam, and that will essentially revert back to being an abutment and not a component of the dam itself. So if the county chooses to revegetate that area, I believe they would be permitted to do so per dam safety standard.
okay. And then what do you do? Are you doing anything for to discourage geese there? Because I know they are kind of a big. Is there anything that?
I'm not aware of them being a concern for water quality for our own treatment purposes, so I don't know that that falls necessarily within our purview, but
Okay.
that's something we could discuss with the Albemarle County staff who does the maintenance of the.
I mean, you
grassy
talk about
areas.
algae blooms, and so there's direct correlation between the geese and the additional nutrients the geese are putting in there and the increased algae blooms and the water treatment. So I don't know if that's something that.
It's not something we are planning to directly address. The destratification system will minimize the conditions that lead to algal growth in probably a much more meaningful way than anything that we could do to discourage geese. So that's probably the best I can speak to that.
Okay, all right.
Mhm.
There's no more questions. Thank you. for your
Thank you very
presentation.
much.
And we'll open it for public hearing. If there's any members of the public that would like to speak to this matter? The time? Seeing none, are there any online?
No, sir.
Not online. Right, we'll close the public hearing for SP 2026-5. And may we have the staff report for SP 2026-2 camp watermarks?
Wait.
Oh, wait.
Vote and stuff?
Discussion and emotion.
I think I said that I was a little bit, I'm moving right along. Moving right along. Okay, going back to 2026-5 Beaver Creek Pump Station. Any discussions?
Makes total sense. I mean,
I'll make a quick comment. Just for the good of the order. There is no impact of filling in the floodplain. There's an impact to the aquatic life and the riparian health of the buffer there. But this project in particular is a project that's necessary in this specific location because of what its function is versus an earlier proposal we heard, which was simply someone wanting to make a buck by filling in the floodplain. So I would be in favor of this application because it has an engineering and public facility need that serves a public good, which is protecting our water supply. So it's a different situation, and I just wanted to point that out for the record.
yeah, and I mean, to state the obvious too, I mean, one of the reasons we protect our streams and our water supply is so that we have water, and this is for that, right? So,
So your district, anyone else want to comment or is that going to motion?
I'll take a motion if someone's ready to make one.
do we have the motion up on there?
I move to recommend approval of SP 2026-0005 Beaver Creek Pump Station fill in the floodplain with the conditions stated in the staff report.
Second.
Any further discussions? Madam Clerk?
Ms. Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
Mr. Carazana,
Aye.
Ms. Firehawk,
Aye.
and Ms. King.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're moving to SB 2026-2 camp watermarks.
Thank you.
I've been up since 5.
Yeah, watch you, don't worry. It's been a rough day.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Just a second to get plugged in here. Okay. My name is JT Newberry, and I'm a senior planner with the Department of Community Development. I'll be providing staff's presentation this evening on this special use permit amendment request for camp watermarks filed under SP 2026 number 2. As shown on the area map on your screen and included as attachment 1 to the staff report, this proposal is located at the far southern boundary of the county along the James River. It's approximately 4 miles west of the town of Scottsville, and it's located between the communities of Warren and Hatton. This amendment is seeking to expand an existing family-owned and operated boarding camp that was founded in 2004. The proposal is comprised of 7 separate parcels totaling just over 190 acres. And those parcels are highlighted on the map there on the screen in teal. These parcels are located in the rural areas zoning district and the rural areas section of the comprehensive plan. The majority of these parcels contribute to the Hatton Agricultural and Forestal District. The first special use permit for this camp was approved in 2006, and it allowed the camp to operate up to 4 weeks per year. Tonight's application is the third amendment to that original special use permit, and the last amendment was approved in 2008. And the action letter, including the SP conditions and current conceptual plan from 2008, those are all included as attachment two to the staff report. Really broadly, the proposal tonight is seeking to increase the overall number of camp sessions, the maximum number of people allowed on site, and a minor reduction in the overall acreage used for camp purposes. Here's a side-by-side comparison of the existing approval to the proposal. The image on the left is the approved area, and the image on the right is the proposed area for camp use. And the image on the right, the parcels outlined in red are those that represent the area of camp use. And so there are 3 parcels that would come out of the existing SP approval. Parcels 9G, 9F, and 9H1, those are hatched in blue, would be removed. And then parcel 9A1 is hatched in bright yellow. The overall impact would be a net reduction of about 12 acres to the overall camp use. And the mustard yellow shading shows all of the parcels that are included in the Hatton Agricultural and Forestal District. So there would only be 2 of those 7 parcels that are not included in the district, parcel 9D and parcel 9A1. Here's a table comparing the existing approval to the proposal. And I think what you'll see is that there are some minor changes in wording to how these characteristics are treated between what's been approved and what's proposed. And that really reflects the county's effort to update and modernize the way we review and develop our recommended conditions for special use permits. You know, as an example, the first one, capacity, the existing approval had 2 separate conditions for children at the camp and staff. That's been consolidated into one condition, regardless of the person's role at the camp. And the proposal seeking to increase it from about 100 people to a maximum of 250 people on site at any one time. The maximum number of sessions would increase from 16 week-long sessions to also include 35 weekend sessions. And that brings the proposal up to a total of 51 sessions, which is essentially allowing the camp to operate year-round. Transportation is another example where you see we had previously 2 separate conditions for vehicle trips associated with campers coming to the site and then food deliveries. Those get combined and consolidated under the proposal to just 15 round-trip bus or van trips per camp session. And then finally, the camp facilities and parking area, which we're going to look at more closely in a second, that's currently about 3 3/4 acres, and it's spread over 2 different parcels. This proposal would increase that area to just over 4 acres, and there's a boundary line adjustment that we currently have under review that would consolidate that whole area into just one parcel, 9D1. So here's a look at the applicant's updated concept plan. It's included as attachment 4 to the staff report. This is 190 acres. It's a really large area, so I'm going to add some color to try to talk about some of the specific areas that are important. The camp facilities and parking area basically serves as the main campus area where structures for eating, sleeping, sanitation, and assembly are concentrated. So this was figure 2 from the staff report, and it shows those structures within that area that are currently approved. Those are shown in green, and then the structures that are currently proposed to be added for camp use, those are shown in blue. Importantly, there would be no new disturbance with the addition of these structures shown in blue. They're existing and located within an area of the site that's already been previously disturbed. So next, I want to look at some of the water resources. Zooming back out to the full concept plan. The stream buffers are highlighted in purple, and then the floodplain is in the blue hatched area. So the site is surrounded by water on three sides. There's a stream that covers the eastern edge of the property, and then also the western edge. And then the James River is across the entire southern boundary, and the majority of the area, well, all of the area south of the railroad is in floodplain. There's no disturbance proposed in these areas. And lastly, I'd like to look at one of the exhibits from attachment 3 that highlights the wooded areas to remain. These are intended to show the areas outside of stream buffers and floodplain that are currently wooded and would remain wooded unless used for some agricultural purpose. There's currently about 100 acres of agricultural use across this across the properties for hay, corn, and tree farming. And before we leave here, I'll also highlight there are 4 activity areas which are used for camp purposes, and they're identified as one of the essential elements of the comp plan. And it's meant to distinguish it and ensure that the areas outside of these activity areas remain available for agricultural uses. And so the major takeaway from looking at these different exhibits is just to say that the proposed expansion is focused within the areas of the site that are already disturbed, and thereby reserving the remainder of the site for agricultural uses. There were a couple meetings prior to tonight's public hearing. The first was the Agricultural and Forestal District Committee review. They found that the proposal would not significantly reduce the land available for ag and forestry uses and recommended it as consistent with Chapter 3 of the county code, which is where we have our provisions on Ag 4 districts. We also had the required community meeting for special use permits, and that took place on site in the dining facilities at Camp Watermarks. There was a good turnout. The discussion was generally positive regarding the proposal. There was a lot of discussion focused on noise and hours of operation. And there were other concerns too that were raised about general activity levels on the river. And so we talked at the beginning about being located between the Warren and Hatton areas where there's a lot of activity along that particular stretch. And so there was some discussion about noise, that whether it could be attributed to activity at the camp or whether it was coming from activity on the river. So all special use permits evaluated under county code consider the 4 factors shown on the screen. Pages 5 through 9 of the staff report contain our analysis on each of these individual factors. Ultimately, staff determined that with the updated recommended draft SP conditions and the updated concept plan, a positive finding could be made for each of these factors. So now I'll briefly touch on each of the recommended conditions. And as I mentioned earlier, these were drafted and organized to be consistent with our current administrative practice and our modernization efforts in the zoning ordinance. For example, you might notice one of the conditions that's on the existing approval talks about compliance with the building code. And that's really not a necessary SP condition because that would be required regardless of whether or not it was an SP condition. So these recommended conditions have been updated with that in mind. And so as is typical, we begin with the general accord with the concept plan. I mentioned earlier, the essential elements include the activity areas, the camp facility, cabin facilities and parking area, as well as the entrance on James River Road. The conditions also cover tree clearing as being limited to those that are only for agricultural purposes. There's also the occupancy limit, which reflects that maximum request of 250 people on site. The next talks about the overall number of session limits and distinguishes between the existing 16 week-long sessions and those additional 35 for weekends, Friday through Monday. There's the condition for transportation that's been consolidated. Condition 6 talks about outdoor amplified music. This is consistent with how we treat other uses in the rural areas, such as farm wineries, breweries, and distilleries. Religious assembly uses in the rural areas are also utilize this language. And then condition 7 talks about lighting. A site plan is not required for this use, but it historically has been a condition here, and staff is recommending that it remain so, subject to the conditions of 417. And then you'll notice that condition number 8 has been stricken through, and there's a yellow piece of paper at your seat to reflect this update. This draft condition recommending an annual zoning clearance was intended to ensure the site's long-term compliance. But after further consideration and collaboration with other staff, we've determined that the intent to support compliance can be satisfied through already existing processes, and therefore it does not need to be included as a separate condition. And I'd like to expand on that just a little bit further to say, just at a very high level, there are open violations on this site, and those are primarily being handled by code compliance and building staff. But as noted in the staff report, the applicant has been responsive in addressing compliance issues and has applied for all the necessary permits that have been identified to date. Currently, there are about 21 different active applications under review. Some of those applications cannot be closed out until action on the requested special use permit amendment is taken. And so in a way, the proposal before you tonight is an effort to and a necessary step forward on the path to compliance. Of course, once compliance is established, then there's the question of long-term compliance. And that's where the fire marshal's office has already informed the applicant that this site will receive an annual inspection from their office. In addition, the health department annually issues 2 separate permits, one for the camp itself and one for the dining facility. And they will also be reviewing the septic system every 5 years. And so with these additional sets of eyes and still the requirement to obtain a zoning clearance initially, staff believes an additional SP condition to do it annually is not necessary to ensure compliance is maintained. And so in addition to that, our code compliance office is prepared to investigate any complaints that would be received outside of those times of inspection. So in summary, with these updated conditions, staff finds 3 positive aspects. Existing agricultural and timber uses could continue alongside the expanded camp. The majority of the property would remain in agricultural use, and additional structures that are proposed are located within an area that's already developed for camp use. One concern is, as we just covered, is that the owner's still working to resolve outstanding code violations, but has been diligent in doing so. So staff recommends approval of this request and has provided an amended recommended motion that's on the back of your yellow sheet and reflected on the slide on the screen. And with that, I can take any questions that you might have.
I have a question. And since I'm relatively new to the planning commission, this might be something others know, but the, the current use and planned use for this as a camp isn't really written into those conditions, but the permit would remain with the property in perpetuity. So if the permit remains, but the activities change from camp, like this retreat and activities that are currently there to, say, a venue for events or weddings or whatever, that that might change, the transportation and, other factors related to the use of the property. So I was wondering, is that something that you typically address in the conditions of a special use permit, or do you see any potential risk in, signing off on a permit that is, significant in its change in the amount of people coming onto the site and the amount of time it's open throughout the year? I'm just wondering what the risk is for how to manage a potential transition that we don't anticipate now.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Jenny may want to add to anything that I have in response. I think I understand your question to be asking, do these conditions only apply to the boarding camp use, or would they also apply to other rural area uses?
More for the use of this property, because I think the nature of use as kind of like an outdoor, oriented recreation center or camp centers is pretty easy to envision. If that use, the activity type on this property changes with a change in ownership to some other type of use that we're not thinking about as we issue this permit that opens it up to a lot of people across the year, how do special use permit conditions usually handle that? Or not? I mean, I'm
Yeah,
just.
so great question. So the proposed recommended conditions would be specific to a boarding camp use. So if a different use came in that was, I think you mentioned like an event venue kind of proposal, that would be analyzed as a new and separate use. And so if that's something that's permitted by right, the property can still enjoy other by right uses, but if it rose to the level of something that needed a special use permit, then it would require a separate special use permit.
Okay.
And if you don't mind, I'll just add, Commissioner Brown, that while the conditions before you don't specifically say for the boarding camp, the application for the special use permit is specific to the use of a boarding camp of over 200 attendees.
That's helpful.
And so
Yeah,
if this goes through the entire process and receives approval ultimately by the Board of Supervisors, typically a letter is sent to the applicant identifying that it has been approved specific to that use with the conditions, and then list all the conditions that the Planning Commission recommends and that the board recommends for approval.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Other questions for staff?
Sure. So one of the activity areas that you identified is right in the middle of the floodplain. I believe it's 9A2. Yeah, you have one of the arrows is pointing at it, and there's a road, a little circle there. So are there any physical structures, permanent structures being located in that floodplain, first of all? And then, well, I'll let you answer that first, and then I have another follow-up question.
Yeah, so the applicant could describe in better detail. None of the existing elements that are down there meet the building code definition of structure. So I think, again, the applicant might expand on this, but there's like a a fenced area for, like a chain link fence area for a ball field or a kickball field. So there are things that don't necessarily rise to the level of a structure, but they nevertheless exist, as accessory to permitted recreational use in the floodplain.
Okay, and then it shows roads there. And we do have within the water protection ordinance, it does talk about roads and floodplains, as something that we don't encourage. So I'd love to know how that's being handled. I mean, I guess, is that a pre-existing road or is that a proposed road?
That exists, and it's there, I think, for the safety of getting the transporting campers across the railroad track. And so it's my recollection is that it's not a very formalized road. It's certainly not paved or anything like that. It's more of a travel lane for access back and forth to that portion of the site.
Okay, and then a final one, in the conditions, it talks about clearing of vegetation, but it says for agriculture, clearing of trees for camp activities and facilities is limited to the activity areas shown on the conceptual plan or areas used for bona fide agricultural purposes. So the clearing of trees for activity areas within, could you address the clearing of trees within activity areas within the stream buffer or within the flood zone?
Yes, there are currently, so this slide shows the four identified activity areas. Within those areas, there are currently no trees. They are existing, they've been cleared. And I'm sorry, I think there's a second part of your question.
No, so I was just saying, so you're saying that in the activity areas, including the ones that we just spoke of in the floodplain, there are currently not trees there?
Correct.
Okay.
So I have a question, two questions, and they're not related. So the first question is, they're adding parcel 9A1 to their camp area. I don't understand why. I don't know what's going on in there. I see there's a ball field in the existing sliver that goes down the river. What are they doing in the other one that they need to add that to their camp area?
Well, as I looked at the concept plan, I believe, if I could get the laser pointer up.
I can see a dashed line, but there's no key that I can see telling me what that is.
Yes, so this activity area here encompasses, currently just this parcel is approved for camp use. This is, I believe, 9A2, and they're bringing in 9A1 to, I think, reflect the this activity area here.
So they're like, they have a ball field, so they're playing, the applicant can answer this, but they're playing baseball or whatever, their kickball or whatever in the whole area. So they're coming into compliance by adding in a parcel they're currently using for this use.
Yeah, I think that it would reflect their current practice, and they own the property, and it was not something that was included in the last amendment in 2008, and so this would bring the site
Bring into compliance of an already existing activity on a particular parcel. Okay, the second question then is, could you just elaborate a little bit more? And the applicant could certainly speak to this if they wish, but say a little bit more about the violations. It seems, I mean, I live in Harrodsville and somebody once put a house up without a permit and then had to take it down. I'm just curious about what was the nature of these? Could you say a little bit more? I don't want you to give us an exhaustive, I don't know how many there are, but
Yeah.
just give me a better understanding of, I'm curious, curious, how did this occur? So it's not that you are the applicant, but just from what you know from the county side.
Yeah, my general impression from the county side would be that as the camp continued to grow and demand and interest, I think attachment 5, I think, to the staff report are all the public comments received. There were a number of very passionate people around, this camp provided such an incredible opportunity. I think as those experiences spread and more people wanted to come, I think the camp, I don't know the reasons why, but I think it kind of grew incrementally over time. And in looking at the previous amendments to the SP, they were for pretty minor additions. It was like 800 square feet onto an existing structure. And so like I imagine that the applicant probably said, hey, we just aren't able to, we are expanding incrementally at a rate that if we did an SP amendment every single time we added a cabin or did something that it wouldn't be sustainable. I think for the activity levels that they were doing there. It's just my impression. The nature of the violations include things like the permits are electrical, they're plumbing, there's some that are just related to setbacks in terms of, something got put in a place where it can't meet setbacks. And so it generates another application to move a property line. And it just, I think in having design professionals review the existing site and the existing conditions and then get feedback on, this doesn't quite meet code, but here's what we need to do to address it. So far, the applicant has been ready and willing to address those things and bring it into compliance with code.
Okay, so that's good to hear. So it's your sense that the applicant understands that they can't necessarily just expand a building anywhere, that they have to actually make sure about setbacks, or if they're doing some big upgrade to the kitchen area that they might need to get a permit for that. All of those things.
I would imagine so, and I expect we'll hear something from the applicant about what they've seen and experienced and learned through this process of identifying the gap between where they are now and what compliance requires.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
I do have one more. So when you have a combined use like this, and we've had other cases where we've discussed combined uses, whether it be solar and agricultural or, other things, when you have both a camp use and an agricultural use, how does that work in terms of the county negotiating the regulations that would apply, or even things like land use valuation? How are those, are those areas excluded? Do we have draw lines around the areas of camp use and then and decide like what part is agricultural, and how is that negotiated?
That's a great question. So I'm aware that, for example, the application to move a property line will generate a review of the land use tax assessment. And so I think through the coming into compliance, there will be a renewed look at these different aspects of it. And that's basically all I know in terms of the sequence of triggering, an application in the planning division that then goes to building and zoning, that then goes to the land use validation office. There's a chain effect of these different applications that bring the site into compliance.
And a similar question related to things like the water protection ordinance, just as an example. I know that it sounds like we're handling that through the special use permit, but when you have the standards for agricultural use, for example, and water protection are very different than the standards that one would apply to a camp. One would require 100-foot buffers, the other doesn't require buffers. So what set of regulations apply and where in those circumstances when you have two uses overlaid on top of each other?
Frank Paul, County Engineer. Great question, and we deal with that every day. So it's a case-by-case basis about what they're doing. They have a beach, for instance, that's not buffered. That's an existing beach. They do have a structure that they converted from a dock to a enclosed structure that they're going to remove. So we've addressed that. With all the other uses, they are existing out there. So we would not require quote mitigation for areas. Any future disturbances could be considered there are forestry areas out here. And they're I think they're in some kind of the ag district,
The
right? So,
Hatton Ag 4.
so they could forest it. How would we determine whether that's legitimate or not? We would have to get with the forester, and we have those discussions, like I said, seems like every day. So I don't know. I don't have a single answer for every situation that could come up, but we work closely with the forester for what's claimed as forestry and then conversion to pasture. We work with the Virginia, I forget their name, they're over in Waynesboro, but the folks that regulate the ag. And we're not agreed with all the time, but we take affidavits from landowners also that support their claims.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more question for staff, and that is around the sound levels. I see that there's like established codes that are listed in the conditions. Was looking at some of the community feedback, and certainly noise along the river is a concern and has been for other areas along there. Voices carry on water much more than in other situations. And so I was wondering thinking about if you have 250 people by the water, for example, like it's, not amplified music, but it could be very loud for other people in areas along the water. And I was wondering if there are other ways that you have incorporated conditions and special use permits to manage sound levels other than amplified music that might be something to consider here.
Yeah, so I think one thing to say is that exempt from our noise ordinance are persons' voices. They're totally exempt from regulation. But I think one way that's been addressed in the past has been, the hours of operation or the quiet hours, and basically having those established at a rate at a level that's appropriate for the setting.
Okay, thanks.
May I add to that? So this area is defined, so we would look at that area differently than we would the other areas that are outside the SP area. So if it's within that SP area, if they did do some clearing within that SP area, I think we would agree that that is not within a forestal use or ag use.
Okay. If we have no more questions, we'll invite the applicant. They wish to speak. Don't have to.
I'm not sure he heard you, Chair.
Oh, the applicant, yeah. And you'll have 10 minutes. When it goes from green to yellow, then you'll have 5 minutes.
Amazing. Sounds good. Well, I don't have any slides, but I do have something prepared just to read, and then any questions you guys have, I'm more than willing to answer any questions as well. My name is Josh Kreitzer, and I'm with Watermarks Camp in Scottsville, Virginia. I was born here, raised in Scottsville on property. I'm raising my children in Scottsville, and I want to retire. I've been on my family land my entire life, and I truly want to preserve it for generations to come after me. This land has been in my family for generations. I feel proud to spend my life preserving and honoring what I've been blessed to manage. We are and have been a working tree, hay, and corn production farm on the majority of our property while also running a summer camp. I'm the second generation to work at Watermarks. My parents started camp to be able to share this wonderful land and nature with young people
who can come to get away from the busyness and chaos that they experience. They can quiet their mind, they can experience Jesus, friends, and community, and leave a changed person with new friends, new memories, and confidence. We believe by sharing what we have with others. Through the summer camp experience, we are building the next generation of leaders who can continue to make an impact in our community, city, state, and our nation. We are a small part of turning around fear, anxiety, depression, and loneliness in young people. We show them what living a rural life looks like, giving them an experience of fun, hope, joy, community, and peace that they can bring home and hold on to for years to come. My goal with stepping into leadership at Watermarks and running the property is to get things right. I am now the president and director of Watermarks, and my parents have stepped down into lower roles. We've been diligent in getting everything required, getting compliant and up to date to be able to continue to offer a safe place for children, for young people to come. A little bit about Watermarks. We are a Christian summer camp that hosts youth groups, middle school and high school students for a multi-day overnight experience that includes food, lodging, activities, and worship times like a church service. Our staff cook the food, we run the activities, we lifeguard, hang out with students, and keep areas clean. Their church provides chaperones to stay in the cabins with the students, teach their students, help supervise, and pour into them at their time at camp. The students are brought in from their church on a charter bus, and they're dropped off and stay on site the entire time during their session and are picked up by that same charter bus on their last day of their session. We get food delivered via delivery truck per session and truly try to limit our amount of traffic and noise to be able to enjoy the land and rural area as much as possible. Our activities that we provide include team building activities that focus on conquering fears, communication, and working together, fun activities in our lake to cool off on the hot days, competitive games that encourage teamwork, fun, and activities to bond students together. We've been able to experience many lives change through the summer camp experience, but it's a growing trend we've noticed for school systems to start to shorten summer breaks, which puts us and other summer camps in general at risk of not being able to operate long-term if that trend continues to evolve. Summers get shorter and schools choose to go year-round, and we're not able to pivot into year-round operations. So what we're looking to update, we're looking to be able to operate year-round. Summer camps would go over our normal summer camp sessions that we currently have, and retreats would extend into year-round on weekends from Friday through Sunday, Friday night after 5 p.m. through Sunday morning before 11 a.m. Other than Martin Luther King Jr. Day and President's Day, we would go through Monday for those holidays. We're looking to increase our capacity to 250 total on site year-round and over the summer. This number comes from our septic system that was designed and installed a few years back and what it's rated to handle. So we wanted the option to continue to grow towards that number. We're just going for the max number that we can without updating our septic or having to go through this process all over again. That 250 includes campers, chaperones, and our staff, 250 total on site. We've had our well tested and we've had our septic tested, and both are able to handle that demand with a lot of margin. We're looking to use existing farm buildings on site to be used as cabins, meeting spaces, and bathrooms to accommodate that additional growth. With your permission and after going through building and zoning inspections and permits, these buildings would be, as on the concept plan, the worship center, the boathouse, bathhouse 1 and 2, leader cabins 1 through 3, cabins 19 and 20. We're asking for you all for these permission to use these buildings as in our concept plan. We've submitted the necessary permits and will continue to get those completed and compliant. Again, there are no new buildings being constructed. We are just using existing buildings on site for camp instead of farming. We're not looking to add any additional buildings to disrupt any nature, to make new roads or paths, or grow any above this plan. We just want to be able to hold on to our family land for generations to come and make a difference while doing it. With inflation and hardships through COVID, farming and camp has been incredibly difficult to thrive, even just survive, and this would provide us the opportunity to hold on to the land that we love while maintaining the existing rural setting that we have on property. Thank you for your time and consideration and letting us continue to operate and be able to hold on to the family land and make a difference at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for the applicant?
A couple, but anybody can start us off. Well, I wanted to start by thanking you for the septic answer. I was really wondering, like, how you're gonna go from 75 to maybe 100 people to 250, and the answer is you've already upgraded it. It was built bigger than what you needed,
Indeed.
what you had a permit for. That's great. This is a very minor question, doesn't really impact a lot, but I was just curious where the busloads of kids come from if you got just buses and no personal cars.
Sure. So they meet at their church, the church that registered through us, load up there, and then they drive to us, drop off, and the buses go back. So they're hired charter buses,
So
but they meet at their church,
your clients are really only the churches then? It's-
100%.
Got
And
it.
they handle the registration and all of that stuff.
Got it, got it. All right, the one that I think my colleague on the dais sort of brought up, but I'll ask it too.
Sure.
How'd you end up with a bunch of buildings that weren't permitted or up to code?
Sure. So a lot of them are farm buildings and
Yeah.
they are permitted farm buildings and we're filing permits, sorry, for change of use.
Got
So a
it.
lot of those buildings are going from what it was to what it's going to be.
Mhm.
A lot of them, I will say, my parents love them to death, aren't administratively gifted per se. And I know there was a software update that happened in 2019 with the county. So there's a lot of papers that we have had that the county has not had regarding inspections, electrical, HVAC that we have provided. We just don't have the full set. So a lot of the new construction permits are being filed because literally cannot find the old permit and neither can the county. So
Got it.
the suggestion from the county was just apply for a new construction permit and then those buildings would be inspected to today's code, not when they were built. So
Sure.
it just makes it safe for everybody.
Yeah, as I appreciate the diplomatic language there too. Was wondering just kind of to that point, how you've been ensuring structural safety of the buildings and also things like zip lines and ropes courses and all.
We partner with for all of our activities, they get inspected annually by Vestal's Gap Ventures. And they come and do a whole inspection. Our insurance requires it. And then we have to give that report to insurance company and ensure everything got fixed and up to code. And then as far as buildings, whenever we've had a lot of inspections as of late and they've all been gone through. As of today's code, not when they were built as well. So there have been plenty of eyes the past couple of months throughout this process. And we have walked through with everyone and are totally open to anyone coming to look to ensure that that's the case. But we do have staff on site. They go through the buildings annually, routinely, just to ensure that everything's looking good as well.
Yeah, cool.
So.
And then I just wanted to ask a little bit more too about the projections for growth. I know you sort of indicated in the narrative, it's not going to go from 75 kids to 220 kids like,
Sure.
Like next year, but kind of what is your trajectory that you're hoping for?
I mean, right now, we're doing what we're doing. I will say this process has been, I have a 9-month-old and a 3-year-old. And going through this process with a newborn, I don't want to do this again. So that's why we kind of shot for the stars. And I love you all and I love doing this, but I hope to, not have to do this again. It's been very expensive, very painful. I don't know if we can ever get to those numbers.
Yeah.
It's very possible. I just want the option to be able to. All I want, I'm not looking to get rich. I just love the land that I have and I want to be able to hang on to it and whatever it means to get us there. Obviously, farming has not been very profitable. So doing the camp thing lets us do both magically. And if we have a bad farm year, it doesn't crush us. And camp has really been the saving grace that we get to share and be able to hold onto our land at the same time. So I have no dreams of making this a mega thing. I just want the kids that we're blessed with to be able to come and have fun.
It's a potential scale up, and yeah, I don't think anybody thinks of family-run church camps as a way to make their.
Indeed, I picked a hard line of
Make a
work,
million.
I can tell you. So. But yeah, I have no intentions of going there overnight.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. And I was curious too, just a little bit more about the agricultural operations.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, you alluded to it some, more here today than in the narrative, but you mentioned hay and corn and
Indeed.
trees over the years. And I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about kind of the trends in that over the years.
Sure.
On the
A
farm.
lot hasn't changed and nothing is going to change. So what we do hay for will always be hay. What we do trees for will be trees and what we do corn for will be corn, but we have over 80% of the property farmed. And we do that by outsourcing local farmers as well to come cut the hay, to plant the corn, to cut the corn, and then we work with a company and a forester for the trees as well.
Okay.
And none of those happen in the stream buffer, so I know that came up, but the hill is so steep, we're not, regardless, 100 feet from there is like a straight down for all the streams, so nothing is happening on those.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I'll commend you at, we've often had people come before us for applications that don't anticipate future growth and then end up coming back, a year or 2 years.
Indeed.
So I commend you for looking forward in the future so that you
Thank
don't
you.
have to come back here. So one thing I want to know is we had a similar discussion with a campground that was on the river recently about emergency management. On the weather right now, we're calling for severe storms, could be this afternoon sometime. What is your procedure that you have for if you do have campers out by the river and you get and there is a severe storm watch? What are your procedures that you have developed to make sure that we get those campers out of the floodplain quickly?
Sure. So y'all mentioned the 2 parcels down at the James area. The one that we're adding, the only reason we're adding it is because Camp paid for it and Camp owns it. So there's no reason why Camp would own property that we can't use for Camp. So that is in Camp Watermarks Inc.'s name. But the wiffle ball field is right beside it. So we don't have any intentions of adding anything there. It just doesn't make sense to own something. That is only used whenever a group says we want to go down there and do that. And we take them by bus down there. And if there's ever a storm or anything, we load up and come right back, or we just don't go at all. Especially kids don't want to play in the rain, and if there's any risk of rain, we're not going to go play in the rain. So the 9D1 is the main parcel. 99% of all camp time is spent on that one parcel. So at any time we could like sound a whistle, tell everyone to come in, and within 30 seconds we can have everyone inside in a structure in a building. So storms come fairly quick, but we always have about a 30-minute buffer time because we can see straight to the mountains. So we can see when storms are coming really quick.
Great, yeah. So and then no bearing on approval of your application whatsoever, but
Sure.
just did want to make sure that you're aware, I assume as someone that does agriculture, you're aware of the Soil and Water Conservation District and the programs they offer in terms of programs, and also NRCS and programs they have for things like wildlife habitat for quail, pollinators and so forth. And there are also residential programs through for things like that would apply to your camp. So if you're not already taking advantage of those programs, since you are along the river, I just encourage you to do so and look at
Sure.
those. And some of them have educational components too that might benefit your campers.
Absolutely.
So,
Well, my questions have been answered.
Okay. Well, I will add that, I have 4 children and all 4 of them went through watermarks through the years, when they're all grown now, and now I have grandchildren. I actually went a couple times myself, and I did have a question about, and it was, I don't even think there were 75 people at the time, but maybe there were. Going from 75 to 250 is a big number, so
Yes.
I would think, and maybe there's a question for staff, I mean, there would have to be some more structures that you would add, more cabins, and they would come back for that, or how would that work from a?
Can I answer first? So we have in our current SP, we have 10 cabins plus an accessory building for staff, and that can get us to 150 easy. We just don't fill them because we can't, but all the other buildings would get us to 250 easily if we want to do. But I think the trend we noticed in COVID and beyond is people don't like being crammed in small spaces altogether anymore. So having a little bit more room to spread out, but we don't need any more cabins or anything other than what we're asking on site already.
You don't have the bunk beds anymore in the?
We do have, we do have bunk beds everywhere. It is summer camp for sure, so. But yeah, to get to 250, we don't need to build anything else.
That's all I had. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Great, we'll open it for public hearing, and if there's anyone that wants to speak to this matter, I do have a list, so I will call your name. I'll do two at a time, so the other one is on deck. Mitch Carr, and then I have Sunny Knight. And when you come up, you'll have 3 minutes. And once you get that yellow light, that means you got a minute to finish up any remarks. Please state your name and magisterial district.
Hi, my name is Mitch Carr, and I'm the neighbor right next door on Rock Island Farm. I want to say that I've been friends with the family for 20 years. There is a stream between us that I spent $20,000 putting a buffer on. He's got his buffer between his and the forest there. My neighbor Ann Riley, she put her buffer in, so we've got it protected. It's a spring that comes out, goes straight through his property and into the James River. It's been protected 20 years, there's been nothing, and that is what I want, the way I want it to stay. I'm worried, I know that they do everything right. I know you people can tell you've got good people here. If it came down there, your family was there, you know they run it right. It's they really look out for everybody. My thing is that I'm worried about is the alternative, which you had a question to. In Virginia with the Dillon rule, it could become a winery, it could become a brewery, it could become all kinds of things by right. And then we would have, 200 or 300 visitors a day there instead of buses going around. As far as the noise goes, I have a house there. I'm on the river on the backside, and the camp faces it off my front porch. I go out there in the afternoon and I see if I hear them over at the camp. I have to listen. I think I hear maybe somebody cheers, something happens. I go on the back porch. I can hear the traffic on the river that's just there. The kids are just talking. It's just loud. It's not obnoxious. It's just kids making noise. People having fun either way. But we also have the train track that traverses it. We have gunfire. We have agricultural equipment. My farm, I have 70 head of cattle. We've got cattle trailers. We've got bale and hay, all around. So I don't think the noise should be an issue for anybody, to be honest. I don't think that the traffic is an issue. It hasn't been. We've got logging trucks. We've got school buses. We've got just the farm equipment, tractors going down, everything. And so the buses in 20 years have never been a problem for me at all. And I just want to tell you that you're dealing with some very, very good people here who really care about what they're doing. When the kids come through my farm, he's got the farm road comes up and he would drop them off in the river. They come through, they're picking up trash as they go through the river. I even made a place for them to put it on there. I go down there one day, the kids are rolling tire down the river they found, and I told them leave it on my beach, and I pulled it up and I took care of it and stuff like that. So that's the reason I wanted to go, and I hope you folks will really consider that this is a really valuable asset to the county. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, Sunny Knight, and then
Connie Knight. Sorry.
and
I live in,
and sorry,
ahead.
Tommy Tapscott is on deck.
okay. I live in the Haddon Ferry area all my life. I've known Travis all my life. Like Josh was saying, generational. My family's been there for generations to come. I don't have an issue with watermarks. I'm a full supporter of them. When they started many years ago, I support them. Just the thought that young kids can come out of the city from all over the state to area that's beautiful, that's quiet, like nature, that they don't have the opportunity to. I'd rather, if they're talking about noise level, if laughing offends you, then yeah, that's a noise level. Because what I hear laughter. To me, that warms my heart when I'm going home. And once I'm in the house, I don't hear it. I get more noise from a neighbor, playing music at 12 o'clock than Travis and them. And I really support the watermarks. I hope that you guys will give them their permit. They deserve it. You think about it, I'd rather have kids there learning about Jesus than being on the streets in the city shooting and guns. So they have an opportunity where they can express themselves. They can get the comfort and peace and make new friends from all over. Thank you.
Thank you. So Tommy Tapscott and Jesse Gibson is on deck.
Thanks. My name's Tommy Tapscott. I have lived there my whole life. I grew up in this area. My property now joins Watermarks. I believe I'm on their western border. And my house is very close to one of the activity areas on the map. And I can tell you that, well, sometimes we hear kids over there, of course. I don't think of it as any different than we hear lawnmowers in the neighborhood and we hear tractors. And this time of year especially, there's a lot of traffic on the road because between Warren and Hatton is a popular place. People float the river. So I live next door and I can't imagine anybody, really having an issue with noise coming from the camp. Also, I'd just like to say that the camp has always been good neighbors to me. And I know most of the people in the neighborhood, and I think that you will hear people say that they are very responsive. If anyone has any questions or concerns, that Josh, Travis, and Angie, they're very quick to address concerns and try to be accommodating and try to be good neighbors in the area. And so, I strongly encourage you to support the application and approve it. Thanks.
Thank you. So Jesse Gibson and Paul Bryant.
Good evening. My name is Jesse Gibson. I have lived across the street from the camp. I own property with my wife on the floodplain directly beside them. I own probably close to 60 acres down there, of which, if you look back in the history, was actually all part of the same farm that Travis and them own. I admire them for finding a way to keep their property in an agricultural setting, not another subdivision, not another bunch of duplexes, but a nice family setting, and keeping it as rural as what I moved to 35 years ago. Yeah, we hear some noise, but if you have a problem with hearing a bunch of kids having a good time, I'm sorry. It's no more noise than what we hear. As Mitch said, with the train running up and down the tracks, farming equipment working, the amount of traffic we get is tenfold in the summer, but that's majority from people using the river between Hatton and Ferry, and Warren as it's a prime tubing destination. But as far as I think most of the neighbors concerned, we're real happy with them. Travis and Josh have always been very transparent with any kind of issues you have or any kind of questions. And as far as my family's concerned, we 100% support them in what they're trying to do. And like I said, I commend them for trying to find a way to keep a farm and keep the rural lifestyle that we've all grown to love in our area. Thank you.
Paul Bryant and Mickey Sedart, if I pronounced that right?
I'm Paul Bryant. I live at 1151 James River Road, which is right beside the camp. I can walk out my house and actually see part of the camp. I'm all for it, no problems whatsoever. I know it's buses on the roads. There's a lot of farm traffic on the road. James River Runners buses on the road. You drive down James River Road, the only thing you see of the camp is a small sign and a gated driveway. I hear kids playing if I'm outside. If I'm in my home, I don't really hear anything. But, I always figured it took a pretty sorry person who couldn't stand to hear a child play. And I'm all for this camp. I've been there all my life. I'm 74 years old. And I think Travis and Josh and Angie are great people. And it's really good for the kids to be there and have a place to come to enjoy themselves and be outside instead of at home on a computer or a phone. And I'd like to see y'all pass this permit. Thank y'all.
And then I have struggle with this one. I believe the last name is Adscott.
Tapscott.
Okay.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name's Michael Sutterth. I'll be speaking on the behalf of myself and Rupert DeVink. He is the neighboring farm downriver. I work as a farm manager there. Rupert is unable to attend this evening due to travel and business. He asked me to make clear that we are not opposed to the camp itself. The camp has been a part of the community for years, and we recognize the positive role it plays for children and families. The concern is with the proposed expansion of the special use permit and the impact that expansion would have on the surrounding area. This camp is already a very active operation, and the level of noise, traffic, and activity is already having a noticeable impact on neighboring properties. Increased occupancy to 250 people, along with broader and more year-round operations, would significantly increase noise, activity, and disruption. It would change the character of this rural area. There are also concerns about the traffic and road safety. James River Road is a rural roadway with narrow sections and limited capacity. Additional traffic associated with an expanded camp creates safety concerns for residents, farm equipment, cyclists, and everyone who uses the road. The expansion also raises environmental concerns, including additional pressure on septic capacity, increased water usage, and the potential runoff given the camp's proximity to the James River and the three waterways surrounding. Finally, this decision is about more than just one property. Expanding this special use permit risks setting a precedent that could gradually change the expectations for rural land use throughout this part of the county. We respectfully ask the Planning Commission to consider preserving the balance that currently exists. Camp Watermarks can continue to serve children in the community without expanding in a way that negatively impacts neighboring properties and the rural character that makes Albemarle County unique. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. That's Scott. And on deck, I believe is Sarah Eck.
Good evening. My name is Landon Tapscott. I live in Scottsville, and I'm here to voice my support for a Camp Watermarks permit. I was a camper there in 2007, and I lived in that same area my whole life. I still remember playing paintball, getting launched off the blob, and ziplining. My time at Watermarks was transformative, and I'd love for others to have the same opportunity I had. In regards to traffic, I jog on James River Road and Warren regularly, so I tend to notice what's on that road. In all my time there, I've never seen the camp cause any sort of congestion, and I've never heard any sort of noise from my own property. The camp has operated at this scale for 2 decades without becoming a burden on the people around it. I'd ask the commission to recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Sarah Eck. I have adjoining property to Watermarks Camp, and I'm here to ask for your support for their expansion. I bought the property in November, so I've been there since then, went through a summer session, and the noise has not been a problem for me. I highly support what they're doing. I think it's a great use of land, a great experience for young people that we just don't have anymore. So I encourage you to continue it. I think the traffic, I can't really see where that's a problem. I think we have worse problems than what's supposed. I could have a lot worse things next to me than Watermarks Camp. So I encourage you to approve their expansion plans. Thank you.
And those are all that had signed up, but if there's others that want to speak to this matter, you can approach. See none. Are there any online?
No, sir.
Okay. Does the applicant like to comment to any of the comments that were made in response? You don't have to. Yeah, we're.
You only get one turn.
You can't. You only get one, but I appreciate it. I think we heard plenty. All right. We'll bring it back to the commission at this point and we'll close public hearing. Any comments, conversations?
I think to me, this is a perfect example of the kind of thing I would frankly like to see more of in Albemarle County. So, I think it's an appropriate use of the rural area. I appreciate that there's no permanent structures in the floodplains. It looks like, some of the issues that I had with one of the previous applications is for us, I do not have with this. So I think that I see absolutely nothing wrong with this. It looks like they're good neighbors. They're planning for the future.
I agree.
I also played paintball and got lunch with a blob years ago.
I don't know what that is, but it sounds fun, I guess.
I didn't go very high, but my son did. All right, with that, anybody would like to make a motion?
I would like to move that we recommend approval of special use permit 2026-00002 Camp Watermark special use permit with conditions 1 through 7 as provided by staff for the reasons stated in the staff report.
Second.
Madam Clerk,
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Commissioner Murray.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear him. Okay. Ms. King,
Aye.
Ms. Firehawk,
Aye.
Mr. Carazana,
Aye.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Ms. Brown.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right,
Tell them that it goes to the.
so your next step is to go to the Board of Supervisors for their approval. They have our recommendation, but they're the ones that give you the approval. Right. Thank you for what you do. All right, do we have any committee reports?
I do. We had the Places 29 Community Advisory Committee meeting yesterday evening, and while there was not a quorum of committee members, myself and the chair and one other member received a very informative presentation from the Rivanna Water and Sewer Authority on updates. They mostly focused on the urban ring facilities, since that CAC is located in the urban ring. So we didn't talk a ton about, Scottsville or Crozet. But it was very informative, and I know that we get that information here at times. But they did recommend, or I guess offered, group tours, which if we haven't done, I thought might be fun. So I thought I'd bring it up.
We could do it 2 at a time.
Well, we could call it a public meeting, right, if we announced it.
I'm sure we could like try and figure out a way to make something like that.
This is to the treatment plant or the water supply plant, or what are you
Pick
talking?
your facility.
I've already taken people on tours because I think it's fun.
I mean, it was just an idea. I mean, I asked a lot of I was fortunate that they had no one in attendance, so I asked a lot of questions about capacity and, the new line that's going between Ragged Mountain and South Fork and how that's going to affect capacity. I asked a couple important questions about the Red Hill facility and how that operates. That's an below ground facility. And so if we are looking in the future to have some satellite growth areas, those could be options where we don't have to do capacity water lines. So I think exploring that when we start to talk about future growth would be, interesting conversation.
It would be great if, maybe they could meet with us. Would that be easier if they came and spoke with us when we already have a meeting?
Being new here, I don't know if we
planned?
do that normally.
Like, that seems like really
Ask for
helpful
topics
information, like
sometimes, yeah.
updates to learn about.
Yeah, it would be an easier done as a presentation here. If there's value in making a trip, to a certain location to talk to someone, I'm sure we can investigate what we need to do to make that happen, but
All right,
Here is good too.
Well, it's not a committee report, but just to piggyback on this, we've talked a little about, some other kind of rich resources we've got in this area as far as information and other things that inform the conversations we have. RWSA and ACSA, are one of those. Also, the Weldon Cooper demographics researchers that we've sometimes alluded to and talked about, just in terms of commuter patterns and growth, projections and all the rest. And I just noted that we've got, from the calendar that got sent around earlier, relatively light, couple of sessions coming up where maybe somebody can be slotted in for a little work session.
Are there any other, thank you for that, by the way. Any other reports?
Yes. There's an NPO meeting. We discussed the smart scale applications, which are all in now. It's interesting to note there's some cost changes in some of these projects. For example, Fifth Street, the cost went down from 44,700,000 to 39,418,000. And then the Barracks Road project, the cost went up significantly from 21,389,000 and some, and then to 46,259,000. So I think there's, obviously some concern about the Barracks Road project as to whether that's going to move forward, particularly with the cost increases. And this is not the first time that that's been through the system. But I guess we'll see, right? Some of the other things that were of note that were interesting is that there's in the reports that both the city and the county are starting their multimodal plans. So I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about that. That should be coming for us. So I'm personally very excited about that.
I do think that would be a good presentation to bring here once that plan is developed.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. And one of the points I made to them is that I hope that we hear from them sooner rather than later. Sometimes these things come to us. Sometimes these things come fully fleshed out to the point where it's hard to make adjustments or changes to them. And so I think
For the MPO, yeah.
Well, I was just saying, well,
But to come here.
Yeah,
No.
for here.
Usually transportation
Yeah.
planning in the past has been just an update, not
Yeah, it's just
an
been
input session.
been an update, but I think even on the MPO tech.
Yeah, but I think particularly with the multimodal plans, I'd love to hear about that sooner rather than later.
I agree.
Yeah. Any other reports? Thank you, Commissioner Murray. If not, Mr. Barnes, you're on deck.
Thank you, sir. So we had quite a busy meeting last week, August 5th, with the board. Multiple items, including some smaller ones. There was on the consent agenda, we had a resolution of intent for the form-based code, which we'll be bringing that back to you guys. Second meeting in September, we're hoping, with the actual ordinance. But this resolution of intent was to expand a little bit of that. We're amending the comprehensive plan a little bit. As you all recall, we had previous comprehensive plan had the focal point at the intersection of Rio and 29. So we're amending the comprehensive plan to reflect the other strategy we're working with, the squares, or the quadrants around that intersection to focus that development, as well as a zoning map, a text amendment, and a subdivision text amendment that are all sort of associated with that update to the form-based code. Other items, it was the public hearing for the James River Runners, which was here, 2 months ago, where they were adding 6 campsites. That was approved by the board unanimously. We also talked to them in the afternoon about several different items. One was the activity center plans for AC 44. We provided a report to the board on 3 areas that staff was nominating for further study, those being Lower Pantops, the Rio Road area, and primarily in that latter one, at Fashion Square Mall and Albemarle Square. And then the final one was sort of in the Hollymead Town Center area and sort of Hollymead. Um, Staff's recommendation was for that latter one, and that is what we hope to be starting off with an activity center plan effort in the next several months. Finally, two other items. One, we presented a work program for the Community Development Department to the board, trying to get them to help us prioritize some of the work that we're doing. A lot of the focus was on a series of zoning text amendments, and a bulk of those were ones that were coming from the state as mandated changes. But some of the other ones were zoning text amendments to deal with a host of other issues, including something that was pulled from the consent agenda talking about confined animal feeding operations. And staff was directed to come back September 16th with a report on those, basically looking at sort of a definition of terms related to these animal feeding operations, what is enabled in state law for localities to regulate, what does the state regulate, and examples of other regulations from other communities around the state. I think the board is looking at that issue as something which has been raised by numerous citizens in the county.
So I listened with great fascination at the discussion of the CAFOs. And one thing that it struck me is a lot of the things that were being asked for or that were wished for there are already things that are part of the Chesapeake Bay Act. And so I know that's been floated several times, but I'll just voice my opinion again, that I think, an incremental approach to adopting the Chesapeake Bay Act would do a whole lot towards addressing a lot of those concerns of the public. One of the major components of that is that if someone is going to, for example, go into a riparian buffer area, they need to have a plan to deal with the sediment and any nutrient. They have the nutrient management plan. And so that's exactly what we're talking about, for things like CAFOs, is that would be the solution to that issue, is that they had a nutrient management plan. So I'll just leave that there. If I wasn't here tonight, I would probably be at the meeting of the Eastern Connector. So I don't know if you wanted to say anything about that, and if there's anything you have about when that might be in front of us.
Right, Eastern Connector, right now the county's advancing two projects, part of a design build initiative. The one project is the Boulders Road extension, which is associated with the AstraZeneca project. And we're also trying to bundle in, it doesn't necessarily, it may play out that because of the way the bids come in or because of costs, that we may not end up bundling the Boulders Road project with the Eastern Avenue project. But we're attempting to try and bundle those together to try and get some economies of scale so that hopefully both roads can be built.
Any word in when, will there be some presentation or any information to us about the Eastern Connector?
At this point, a lot of that's being managed by our Facilities Environmental Services Department. The plan is essentially the same as it has been in years past.
Okay, so after you've seen it before.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, ultimately, with a design build, the actual project that will be built will be, there are parameters that the design builder is required to follow to execute the project. But there may be cost savings or other, design elements that a design builder may bring that actually makes it more cost competitive. I know when we talked about we tried to do this as a private-public partnership previously, and the one plan that was submitted, but then the applicant or the offerer didn't follow up with an actual price. But that particular one was changing from a bridge to like a large arch culvert system, as opposed to having what you think is a freestanding bridge. obviously that project never moved forward, so I'm not sure that that would come back in that form, but there is latitude in the design when you're doing design build.
Great, thanks. And as we know that that's an important project for, we've had applications in the Crozet area that we looked at with some degree of question because of the lack of that road. So I think that,
Okay, we have any new business
No, sir.
and no old business? I know that our next meeting is not July 14th, so we will adjourn till August 25th at 6 p.m.
We'll adjourn to bed. I saw,